First, I'm going to draw 3 boxes on a good quality sheet of paper. Each box should be 1.25 inches by 5.75 inches. That should be big enough to cover up the boxes on our template. I'm going to start by marking in some guidelines and giving myself a little extra space around the edge of the paper. So that's about a 1/2 inch space right there. Another 1/2 inch dot down here. And then I need each of these to be, let's see, we need 5.75. Another one at 5.75. Then I can mark those guidelines. There we go. I'm now going to mix up a complementary pair. I'm going to start with red. I don't need a ton of paint for this. And if you don't own the correct colors, you'll have to mix it. For the purpose of this exercise, your colors don't have to be perfect. So long as they get something close to neutral, that will be sufficient. If you aren't sure, you can take a little dab of one of your colors and a little dab of the other color. And when you mix them together, they should become dark or even grayish or brownish. Ideally, I'll go straight gray or even black. I can see this is going kind of brown, so I need to cool it off a little bit more. I need more blue paint in mine. I'm going to do another test. Put a little dab of red. And this time it's turning much less brown. Going more of a neutral gray. I could probably even put a little bit more blue in. One more test. I think I'm going to be close enough. And this time it's going much closer to gray. So I really had to get it nice and bluish. I'm now going to paint a gradient from one complement to the other complement. Doesn't have to be the most beautiful, perfect thing in the world, but I want to get a nice, reasonably smooth transition. Starting with my red. I want it to be pretty opaque, so I'm going to use a lot of paint for this. And while it's still wet, I'm going to take my green, still in my brush, ink that in there, and we're just going to start to see these blend together. I'm going to leave part of this nice and clean, so we see the pure saturated color. Blend back the other direction. I'm going to have to get some more color, some more red from my palette. I'm just painting very softly and aiming for a spot in the middle that really neutralizes. So we have some very high saturation on one side, and on the other side in the middle, it's gone pretty close to gray. While I still have my paint out here, I'm going to get some white, and I'm going to use a tiny bit of my neutral mixtures to make some warm and cool off neutrals. So it's a tiny bit of color and just a lot more white in it. So very subtle transformations. Okay, getting a nice off-white, and then I'm just going to make a swatch of that. Perfect. Let's add a little bit more warm into it. Get a kind of a different variation. It's going to be very subtle, so I really don't want much paint on there. Great. That made a very subtle transformation. Make sure it's nice and mixed up. Teeny bit more warm. You can see just a tiny bit goes a long way. You're mixing into white. Make another swatch. Not too bad. Let's try a cooler one now. Let's get my cool color. It's okay if they're different values. It's fine. Just the white helps reveal the colors within. It's very hard to see it without the white in there. Let's go over here. There we go. Maybe I'll do one more just for safety. There you go. That's the first one. I'm going to repeat this for my other two complementary pairs. I'm going to do a blue to orange and magenta to kind of a light yellowy green. Here is what a finished sheet might look like. You can see I have my three different complements, as well as a bunch of different warm and cool neutrals using different mixtures of these complements with white. You can go even lighter with this, but try not to go much darker than these. Otherwise, the complements or the neutrals might not show up very well. I'm now going to cut this out using a X-Acto knife or scissors, whatever it is that you feel safe and comfortable cutting these out nice and neatly with. Or you can cut these out with your punch. Here you can see a finished version of the project. You can see that I have three different complementary gradients, and the colors and the gradient correspond to the colors in the color wheel above. We have red and blue green down here, and so forth. Down below, we have 10 different off neutrals, some warm, some cool, some very neutral. As you can see, there's some streaks in the paint. I'm less concerned with perfectionist smooth painting on this, so long as the colors are reasonably opaque and we can see the transitions in colors quite well. That will be sufficient. Make sure there's no smudges on the paper, keep it nice and clean, shoot it in good lighting, all the other usual practices. But a painting doesn't have to be quite as perfect as we've done in the past.